Your brain needs support, and new Ollie Brainy Chews are a delightful way to take care of your cognitive health. Made with scientifically backed ingredients like Thai ginger, L-theanine, and caffeine, Brainy Chews support healthy brain function and help you find your focus, stay chill, or get energized. Be kind to your mind and get these nootropic chews at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Sine die, I guess. The legislature finally wrapped up this week with a book ban. On the other hand, the state did pass a much-needed funding bill to fix our literally crumbling schools. Plus, today on CityCast Boise, we're going to set those weekend vibes with our picks of the week. It's Friday, April 12th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Today, joining me, we have Frankie Barnhill, our executive producer, to break down everything that's been going on this week. How are you doing, Frankie?
Allergy season? Can we just start by talking about that? That's how I'm feeling. I'm like, my eyes are itchy, my nose is running constantly, and yeah, the pollen count is high. I just looked and it was like high to very high.
Great. Yep. Nope. I'm definitely feeling that. Jumped in with both feet.
Yeah, the cocktails of allergy medicine. Our friend Nick Qua talked about his allergy medicine cocktail, and I definitely need to borrow his recipe. So.
I know. Yeah, I'm still kind of like trying to find that balance. So I don't think I've nailed it yet, but I'm really trying. Every day is a new attempt.
Yeah, the nasal drip is real. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling. But overall, it was a kind of a lighter news week than last week, especially. It was a super heavy one, but there's still plenty to talk about for sure.
So the very first thing I wanted to jump into was the really big news yesterday that Governor Little signed House Bill 710.
Yes. So, on Wednesday, we're recording this Thursday morning, and on Wednesday was the official final day of the legislative session. And Governor Little had decided by then that he was going to go ahead and say, yeah, let's ban some books. let's be anti-library here.
Just really ending the legislative session with a bang, a crescendo, if you will.
Truly, truly. So House Bill 710, which of course we've talked about many times on the podcast, and we're going to talk a little bit more in depth next week, we should say, with Mia Maldonado from the Idaho Capital Sun, who's been following that story. So many great reporters have been covering everything to do with the legislative session. We're also going to talk with Jimmy Dawson from Boise State Public Radio about some bills that affect Boise directly next week. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about the legislative session more next week as well. But yeah, Little went ahead and signed it. And I think the quote from Idaho Reports that he said was, "I signed that stinking library bill."
Yeah. Frankie, were you surprised that he actually signed it?
In some ways, yes, and then other ways, no. I suppose last year gave us a glimpse of what he's thinking about these bills that, what this one would do would allow library patrons to sue libraries over books, any book that they deem harmful to children, quote unquote, harmful. And the law does go into effect July 1st. Last year, there was a similar bill. The monetary amount was higher in that bill for anyone who wanted to sue a library. So they dropped the fine substantially. However, there's still major concerns about what this could mean for costs for especially like rural libraries. Yeah. That could really add up. So I was like, well, he vetoed last year's, so maybe he'll veto this one, but election year? I don't know. Yeah, it isn't that surprising, I guess, is the bottom line to me, that he went ahead and said okay to this one.
Yeah, I think I was a little more optimistic than I should have been. There was a lot of outcry. His office said that they got over 7,000 calls, and just calls alone saying that they didn't want this bill to be signed into law. And so I thought that might hold some sway. He has been swayed by calls before. So I thought that would have a little more pull. It was deeply unpopular with people. It has really gotten communities motivated, and people who generally don't talk about political issues really motivated to speak out and to really push back on this. And so I thought that might have more of an impact, but it seems like it didn't.
Yeah. And, speaking as someone who, my mom was a school librarian, this really sucks. This is just really hard. And I think the Idaho Library Association, when they posted about it yesterday, they said, check in on your librarians. And we know that many of them feel unwelcome in the state now and are considering moving or thinking about leaving the state. So that's just one more thing. I guess we'll see if there's any other action that can be taken, but it seems like this is the law of the land now starting July 1st.
You know what was really ironic about this this week is National Library Week.
Oh my God, really? I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
Yes. So that feels particularly painful about this, or ironic, or kind of makes it a little more terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely I was planning on going and taking some little gifts, some little tokens of my appreciation to our local librarians, because on a week that is supposed to celebrate them and all the work that they do, our governor signed a bill that makes their job infinitely harder, bans books in our communities, and could potentially cause libraries to be shut down.
It's an interesting time to see the disappointment in people with this library bill feels very profound in the community right now.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a huge sense of loss and hurt. And as much as I wish this wasn't the case, it really seems like when it becomes personal for people and it hits home, that is when people get involved. That's when people get loud. So maybe this will really galvanize the community. Maybe this is, kind of the push people needed to get more involved.
So lawmakers, they're out of town. And one of the things that they did not do, because they did introduce and pass a lot of bills this session, but one of the things they didn't do that people were calling for and was talked about a lot, nothing on abortion and an exception for the health of the pregnant person.
No.
Yeah, were you surprised by that?
No, and yes. No, because my bar for the legislators and that topic is so low it's in hell. I have no expectations that they will address that in any kind of a helpful or useful way. But they did say that they would.
Right.
So I kept hoping that there would be some kind of a plan or some kind of a strategy. And after a lot of the fallout that Idaho got, we got lots of national press coverage, all of that because of our abortion bans.
Yeah.
A lot of the legislators said, okay, we just need time. We're going to go back into session. We're going to fix the things that are an issue. We just needed more time to explore it. Several of them said, yeah, we didn't read the bills or actually think that the abortion ban was going to get passed. So whoopsie doopsie, we'll fix it. And so coming into the legislative session, there was a lot of talk about, hey, yeah, we want to hear from doctors. We want to hear from providers. And then we will, craft some different exceptions. And the big exception that everyone was hoping for was a health exception.
Right, because right now it's life of the pregnant person,
Yes.
not health. So only your life has to be fully at risk. You're about to die before there can be intervention under these bills, as well as the rape and incest exceptions, which we know are incredibly challenging to use. So the health, and as a nurse, I mean, I'm sure the health piece. Give some examples of how this actually could play out, where someone who is needing medical attention while pregnant, and what could occur to their health, what could actually force them to need an abortion in these cases.
Yeah, there's so many things. Something that I think people who aren't as familiar with healthcare don't realize is there's not really this stark defining line between when your health is in danger and your life is in danger.
Right.
There's not this level of this where we're well, this is just a health concern versus, oh, now you're actually dying.
This is sepsis.
Yeah. What is your health is in danger blood pressure versus your life is in danger blood pressure? There's not one set standard for everyone. That is going to be different for everyone. Maybe, Frankie, you could handle a level of sepsis that I could not.
Mm-hmm.
And so the issue with not having a health exception is there's this huge gray area that now these providers are super worried about, because what if they think, I do really think my patient's life is in danger, but another doctor looks at the case during trial and says, no, I would not in that scenario think that patient's life is in danger. These are these, split second decisions that these doctors are being forced to make. Like, what I want people to know is there's things like, if you're hemorrhaging, if you're bleeding excessively, like how much of that can you handle? How many transfusions can your body handle? That's going to be different for everyone. And someone might be in danger of losing their uterus if we aren't able to take care of a pregnancy, end a pregnancy. They're not probably going to die, but they're going to lose their uterus. They're going to lose their fertility. That is a huge issue. And these are the concerns that doctors are begging the legislature to consider, that there isn't a stark line. There isn't this really easily defined metric to say, oh, this is life and this is death. And so these doctors are struggling every single day to try to provide the care that their patients need, evidence-based care. And the legislature not having any wiggle room for health makes that almost impossible for them.
Right. And the risk of facing these criminal penalties, facing losing their license, their medical license. You spoke, your first episode with us last month was with Dr. Caitlin Gustafson, who was part of a group that put out this report that said that Idaho has lost over 22% of practicing OBGYNs since the bans went into effect. So, I mean, they're tying, this is all connected. The loss of these doctors, the risk to the patients, and the legislature choosing once again not to take this seriously.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of doctors hoped that there would be a health exception bill this legislative session, and that would help stem the flow of doctors. Because working in a situation where you have the flexibility to say there is a health risk here, so now I can treat my patient with the highest level of care, is very different than saying, can I make an argument that the patient was dying? Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's very tricky. That's a really hard place to be in. I'd rather just not practice medicine here, because if you get that wrong, you go to jail. And so I think there was a lot of hope that with that report, with doctors being able to meet with the legislators and make this case, that the legislators would take it seriously. And several legislators indicated that they wanted to take it seriously and that they were interested in that. And then literally nothing happened. So I am very concerned about what that is going to mean for healthcare in this state moving forward, because now we have just ended the legislative session and we still don't have a health exception. So we have to go into the rest of the year without a health exception.
Yeah, and it's not as though the session wasn't long enough for them to get the opportunity to address this, right? How long was it? How long did it end up being in total?
94 days.
Oh, God. It felt long. And that, I mean, they missed, what was that, over 2 weeks over their planned adjournment. Yeah, it was long. And I looked up because I was just curious, like 94 days, what is that? How's that compare? It's definitely not our longest session, Idaho's longest session. That was 2021. That one was a doozy, to say the least. But 94 days does fall outside of the range that's kind of normal for Idaho. And then I was kind of like, I wonder, what are some other like conservative Western states? What do they do? So, okay, I have a little rundown for you. So
I'm excited to hear.
Utah. Our neighbors, very conservative, obviously, as well. They do meet every year, like Idaho, but how long do you think their sessions are?
Oh, theirs was shorter than ours. I'm going to say 75 days.
45 days.
Oh, my God. Yep. Really?
Yep. And they have a limit. They get that 45 days is a tight 45 and they're out. And that's what happened this year for them. What about Wyoming? Another very conservative Western state.
They're all business over there. Let's see. I'm going to say 60 days.
Theirs is interesting. Good guess. So they do meet every year, but it's like odd year where they have a longer session. So their longer session is limited to 40 days. So a limit of 40 days for their longer session.
I'm sorry, that's the longer session?
Yeah.
Guys, what are we doing? What are we doing?
What are we doing? And then the other year is only 20 days.
What?
Yeah. So 60 days, but every other year in total. So 40 days one year, 20 the next. And then Montana, for example, does not meet every year, meets every other year, and it's a tight 90. So essentially, take Utah, that's every year 45, and do Montana's every other year 90.
Okay, so it's really bad over here then. It's one of those things where you don't realize how bad it is until you start comparing. But what are we doing?
Yeah, it's just so funny thinking about, the longer they're in session, the more it costs taxpayers.
Yeah.
Being at the State House, between all of the per diem and everything that the lawmakers who don't live in Boise, all of the costs, keeping the lights on, all the aides, all the everything.
Yeah, no, this is not very fiscally conservative of us.
You would think they would care about that, right?
Well, they sure spend a lot of time talking about how much they care about that, but not so much. Wow. Okay, so I feel like we need to put a little pressure. There needs to be a little pressure about look at what all of our neighbors are doing. Because what's going on here? We're letting them get away with this.
Honestly, we might become California here pretty soon with these long sessions. I don't know. Nobody wants to hear that, right? So
it does. It's feeling a little California-y. Well, and I want you to guess how many bills in the realm do you think there are this session?
It felt like a lot, and we've talked about so many in the last several months. Hundreds, let's say, 500.
That is a really good guess. And usually it is in the 500s range. It was 634 bills.
Oh my God. Not all of those got passed, though. Those were was introduced. Okay.
That's what was introduced. But
still,
that's not like House resolutions or anything. That's just actually bills. So for all of this, not, limited government, not wanting a lot of intervention and wanting to be fiscally conservative, that's not really what we're getting out of these legislative sessions.
This episode is brought to you by ShipStation. If you run an e-commerce business, you know how much work it takes to produce something great while dealing with complicated shipping issues. That's why over 130,000 companies have turned to ShipStation, an innovative tool that allows you to focus less on shipping and more on building your brand. With ShipStation, you can manage orders, label printing, reporting, and customer service on one easy-to-use dashboard. You'll reduce warehouse costs with reliable enterprise solutions and save thousands on shipping costs with discounts up to 89% off. Plus, you can effortlessly import orders from everywhere you sell online. So, turn your shipping challenges into opportunities for growth. Go to ShipStation.com and use code POD to sign up for your free 60-day trial. That's ShipStation.com, code POD.
This episode is brought to you by La Quinta by Wyndham. Your work can take you all over the place, like Texas. You've never been, but it's going to be great because you're staying at La Quinta by Wyndham. Their free Bright Side breakfast will give you energy for the day ahead. And after, you can unwind using their free high-speed Wi-Fi. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you shine. Book your stay today at lq.com.
Okay, Frankie, I'm going to segue with that just a little bit because there were other positive things that happened. I know a lot of times the negative things get all of the press, but there were some kind of good things that happened with school funding, which we desperately need in this state. Did you happen to see about the bill that was going to increase school funding?
Yes, 521. So it will send out $1.5 billion and direct $500 million to school districts around Idaho to basically help with this huge backlog of school repairs, school buildings literally falling apart, especially in these rural parts of the state. So need to shout out Becca Savransky from the Idaho Statesman and ProPublica. They partnered over the last year. We actually had Becca on, I think it was about 1 year ago, to talk about the beginning of this long investigative series she did looking into how bad these schools are, especially in these rural parts of the state, how much they're falling apart and how badly funding is needed, and that the local bonds and levies were not getting passed in these small communities. So the next question was, could the state do it if the local bonds and levies kept failing? And yeah, I mean, that is one thing that happened is the state did pass this bill. The governor was in favor of it, definitely throughout the session, and signed it into law. Plenty of people say that even more is needed, but it was kind of a positive first step in that direction.
Yeah, I remember from those articles, those pictures were horrifying. Like,
terrible.
They were talking about how certain schools couldn't be in session because there was so much snow. We live in Idaho,
right?
But there was so much snow on the roof that it was in danger of collapsing on these children.
Yep.
And that they were having to, there was one part of the article that was talking about how these like kindergartners were having to cross a road.
Oh, yeah.
To get
a highway.
Yeah, a highway to get from the, they have to have their classrooms in different segments because the school isn't being built to sufficiently accommodate all of the students. And so these kindergartners were having to cross this highway, this very busy road, to get to one of their classes. And the teachers were so scared that one of them was going to get hit by a car. Mm-hmm. And so, there is so much that I can break down and rail about in this legislative session, but I'm glad that we're at least taking little steps. I think this is one of those things we've let it get so bad for so many decades that there was enough public outcry, enough shame. Shame works with the legislature, apparently, that we were able to get a little bit of money to at least have facilities where our children aren't in danger or freezing when they're trying to learn.
Totally. Shame and really great investigative journalism. So once again, if you're not a subscriber to the Idaho Statesman, go do that. Go make a donation to ProPublica. This is really incredible to see that reporting, honestly lead to this change. So good for them. But I also thought, did you see the most recent article in this series, though, that they published that was around the Idaho Freedom Foundation?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. What do you think? So the basis of the article was tying in how the Idaho Freedom Foundation, back to the question of these bonds and levies that were not getting passed in a lot of these rural districts or just local districts around the state, that the Idaho Freedom Foundation was behind a lot of the efforts to keep that from occurring, which is not surprising, I suppose.
No, not surprising at all. I think I am so happy that people are shining a light on this and doing this investigative journalism. I think it is so incredibly powerful because Idaho already has a really high threshold for getting bonds and levies passed. It's 2/3. So it's not just a simple majority. We're one of two states that have this extremely, extremely high threshold. So already it's going to be difficult to get funding. But then when you have these groups who are really pushing against this funding happening, they really only have to influence a small amount of people to be able to stop any bond or levy at any time. And it's not just about the campaigning, but they've pushed a lot of laws over the past, 6 or 7 years that make it incredibly difficult for school districts to advocate for their students. And I don't think people always have known about that or been aware of that. So I absolutely love that this article got put out by ProPublica because I think people don't realize how stringent the regulations are on school districts. And so, like, for instance, the article talks about Idaho Falls School District, but I saw this a lot with West Ada with a levy they tried to pass last year. And just simple things like the superintendent or the school board members saying, hey, some of these classrooms aren't safe or these students feel overcrowded. Using the word overcrowded is illegal in the state of Idaho for them. They can be fined and penalized because that's viewed as advocating for a bond or a levy. And so they can't even use descriptive words to talk about what's happening. They have to try and appear as completely neutral as possible, which is a weird tightrope when they're like, hey, your kids are being exposed to open wiring and like dangerous pipe, and
the water is brown. Can I say that? Yeah.
Yeah. Like they couldn't even say things like, for one of the schools, there's concerns that a roof could collapse. Well, that is supposedly, I guess, loaded language. So it has to be like, the beams on this ceiling could potentially fail. And that would be unhappy for any student crushed by the ceiling. So it's like their hands are tied so much. And so there were groups with every kind of messaging they did where they were making videos where they're just like, look at how this wall looks like it's rotten. See how it looks like it's rotten. I can't say anything about it.
Rotten, good, bad, you decide.
Yeah, you have to decide if it's okay for students to go to school with rot. See how this wall moves when you touch it? It's not supposed to do that. But I can't say anything else.
And that's isn't that because Idaho Freedom Foundation pushed this bill.
Because Idaho Freedom Foundation pushed a law in, I believe, 2018 to make it so that schools cannot, quote, advocate for anything that would increase taxes, which really just puts them in this weird spot. So with West Ada trying to get this levy passed, even just like, taking a video where they're like, do you see how this wall is rotten? There were groups that were trying to get them fined and trying to get all of that taken down, saying it was advocating for a levy. When how are you supposed to explain what's going on or get the community to understand the level of problem if you can't describe what is happening? So the Idaho Freedom Foundation has for years worked to really tie the hands of school districts and make it incredibly difficult for school districts to explain what is going on in a way that gets the community motivated. And the Idaho Freedom Foundation knows that. Like they weren't ignorant to this. It's something where if they can tie their hands, if you can't use language that gets people in their feelings about the situation that their children is in, of course they're not going to want, if you have to keep it completely, this wall is rotten, but your taxes would go up. A lot of people, unfortunately, are going to be like, well, I care about my taxes and, kids, whatever, it'll build character.
Right. Deal with it. I think overall, though, this series, again, just really has shown a light on so many different elements of our education system and what's going on in Idaho schools and the powerful groups that are influencing one way or another on these issues. So, kudos again to Becca and everybody at The Statesman and ProPublica for this great series. It's gone on for like a year now.
Yeah. Thanks, Becca. You are absolutely killing it. Love it. Okay, so I know we said we were going to keep it light and that there wasn't that much going on this week, but man, we have really kind of hit all sorts of things. So I really wanted to round this out with, what is your pick of the week, Frankie? I know there's been a lot going on. Lots of people are in their feelings. So I really want to end on a note that can just set the tone for the weekend. So Frankie, what is your pick of the week?
Yeah, talk about being in your feelings. There were a lot of big feelings on an Instagram post from Amano in Caldwell, one of my very favorite restaurants, one of many people's very favorite restaurants in the Treasure Valley. Amano posted this, put this post out, said, "New location is brewing." And then this like very long, beautiful description of how they're thinking about like the next iteration of the restaurant, all this stuff. We will be at our current location through the remainder of 2024, but then didn't say what the next location will be after 2024. And everybody in the comments, it's my pick of the week because people were so scared that they were saying that they were leaving Idaho or like leaving Caldwell or leaving the Treasure Valley, and everybody was freaking out. And then they came in and said, "No, we're not. We're staying in Caldwell. We're just going to move locations to somewhere else in Indian Creek Plaza." So it was like everybody was so terrified that they were going to lose this delicious menu and that Chef Sal Alameda's food was going to depart from Idaho or something. But it ends up they're moving a little bit, and we'll find out more. Have you been there, Lindsay? Have you been to Amano?
I haven't been there, but I've been wanting to try it just because they really are just an institution that everyone really seems to love there.
You got to go check it out. Yeah,
Okay.
I think if I can give you a recommendation,
Please do.
I dream about this brunch all the time. So they have an incredible brunch menu, of course, dinner as well, and their cocktails are fabulous. I like to go there for brunch a lot, and their birria hash and their consomme is so good. It's so good.
You never have to try to convince me to get birria. So
yeah, just saying that's enough. Yeah.
And brunch is my favorite. So
and great for leftovers. It's fabulous. Also their coffee. I think it's Cafe de Olla is how you say it. And it's Mexican cinnamon sticks, spices, and then it's topped with whipped cream, and it is incredible. I also dream about that coffee all the time. So that's my pick of the week, is the love that Amano got when they scared everybody, making them think that they were leaving.
That's a great marketing tactic, though.
It really was. It really was. It went kind of viral. So yeah.
Do you think it was on purpose, or was that accidental, where they're like, whoa?
I want to know who's behind their socials, because they knew what to do. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it had the perfect reaction, and now more people are talking about it. I really, really want to try it now.
You gotta do it. What's your pick of the week? What kind of gave you some joy this week?
Okay, it's not as good as that. It's not as good as brunch. But I have a bunny that has been living in my backyard.
What?
I know. It showed up once last week, and now every single morning it just hops into our backyard. And we don't live rural, so I don't know where it's from. There's lots of cats in the neighborhood, so I'm low-key terrified for it all the time. Named it Roger.
Cute.
And it just every morning comes into our yard, and every day I'm so excited. It's there, it's happy, it's thriving. So even when things are kind of feeling like they're falling apart or crazy, Roger shows up every day. We're having some great rabbit time in the backyard, and I'm like, okay, everything isn't terrible. There are some good things.
What color is it? Is it does it look like it's a wild bunny, or is it escaped?
Yeah, no, it's gray. It's kind of, it's not like a white bunny. I don't think it has escaped, but I am kind of I was talking to my
magician that lost it recently? Or?
Yeah. If somebody's missing a rabbit, it might be in my backyard, but I'm like, what should I plant? What do bunnies like? It's eating our grass and stuff, but we were kind of looking up, I will plant whatever Roger wants. I'm really ready to accommodate whatever he needs in my backyard.
That's fabulous.
Well, thank you so much, Frankie. This was a great weekly roundup, and hopefully going into the weekend after legislative session's done, we can kind of throw that off and head into spring and into the next week.
Yeah. Happy Friday. Happy weekend, everybody. And thanks so much, Lindsay. This was fun.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Frankie Barnhill, and me, Lindsay Van Allen. Blake Hunter and Adrian Gonzalez wrote our Hey Boise newsletter this week, and our music is by Up Is The Down Is The. If you enjoyed our show today, leave us a review. It helps other people find us. We'll be back on Monday with more content that you won't want to miss. See you then.